Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Hello, and welcome to another episode. Today, we are asking ourselves the question, what is your infinite game? And I'll tell you that this episode is influenced by the book, which is The Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. But it's really a conversation between you and me about what is your big picture? What is your why? What is your infinite game that you want to start playing? I'll give the caveat that I'm not doing a deep dive into the book, right? This is really meant to be more thought-provoking than anything else. But of course, go read the book if you'd like to. All right. So as I have been reading the book, kind of the summary of thinking about infinite game versus a finite game. A finite game is what we are usually familiar with. And a finite game is something where there are clear rules, there are clear players, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So sports games that we would typically think about, right? So like baseball or football, right? They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you are playing a board game with somebody, right, there are rules that are written out. Generally, the same players would be playing throughout the game, right? And you can begin the game and you can end the game, right? Fairly simple concept there. When we think about an infinite game is more this concept of having a long-term vision in mind, but not having fixed rules, not even having fixed players, but this long-term vision of what you want to be accomplishing. And he breaks this down in a lot more detail in the book. But when I was thinking about this for myself, I thought, wouldn't it be interesting for us to sit down and really think about what is our long-term picture as physicians? When I think about this question for myself, I think that's become more and more clear the more time that I've spent. So when I started my career, graduated from residency 14 years ago, in 2010, I was doing full spectrum family medicine, what I considered, I guess for a little while I was doing some hospital inpatient medicine, not very much. But also delivering babies, right? Also being in clinic, fairly broad spectrum. And I added procedures over time. I was doing a lot of things, and I was working in an employed position where I had, to some extent, the flexibility to be able to build my practice in that way, although I didn't have complete control over so many things. But we'll put that aside because that's not really what we're talking about today. But in that setting, right, I felt stuck in not really having a clear purpose. When we are in medical school, when we are in residency, right, we have a beginning, middle, and end to that. And when we leave that and come out into our attendinghood, it can feel very nebulous because we are used to, frankly, playing a finite game, right? We are used to knowing what school or what training program we're in, knowing who's in charge of the program, knowing that we will move through the curriculum. And so long as we, pass through these various steps, right, we will get to this other side. And we will get a certificate, right? We will be recognized as having graduated from that program, as having left. When we are out in practice, it's a lot less clear what is our long-term goal. we might have a goal of, well, I'm going to be practicing in my specialty for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But a lot of us don't stop to really have a clear, passion-driven goal or direction that we're going in. And I think that's probably especially true in primary care. Um, I can't speak to the experience of specialists here, but in primary care, we're just seeing kind of whatever comes in. We might have some limits in terms of what ages we manage or, to some extent what conditions we see, but we're seeing so much undifferentiated disease, right? People coming in to see us as the primary thing. And of course, this happens in outpatient clinic settings, it happens in urgent cares and sometimes in emergency rooms, right? People coming in with undifferentiated disease and coming in with whatever, right? Sometimes they're showing up in my clinic with chest pain and they're sweaty and they're nauseated, right? And we have to send them to a different setting. Sometimes they're coming in because their toe was hurting last week. Sometimes they're coming in for their well child. Sometimes they're coming in for prenatal care, right? There is this endless sort of stream of people coming in. And I noticed for myself, the further I went along in that journey, that the undifferentiated nature of primary care was not really what I wanted to be doing for the long term. Now, I did that for 10 years. I don't know, I'm 14 years into practice now. But for me, I have seen that what I really want for myself is I want to be narrowing my niche down to a smaller subset where I have identified special interest, special expertise, right? And can really speak to people in a way that really can help them, right? And for me, that's around metabolic health and obesity care. And as I am figuring this out and sort of leaning into this idea more, my sense of an infinite game is growing and expanding because it gives me this long-term sense of what I want to be building for my life. And in so doing, it allows me to be able to better identify, like, what are the decisions that I'm going to be making day to day. When somebody asks me, will I, see this new patient? Will I allow them onto my panel? My questions are, kind of what's going on with them? Do they need this particular kind of care? When I look at the CME that I want to be doing, right? I want to think about how is this going to help me as I'm doing more work with people around metabolic health and obesity. As I am thinking about my career, right, and the future, I don't know exactly what practice I'm ultimately building, but I can see that this is sort of my calling and desire within medicine, and I want to be moving towards that. So you can see it's an infinite game. There is no end point. I will not reach this place where I have cured metabolic disease and obesity. But I can see that I want to grow my capacity to serve people in this particular way. And in sort of doing this personal reflection, it got me thinking about how in the past, for me, within a general primary care setting, I wasn't really clear on what I thought my big picture was. I just sort of felt like I was in this hamster wheel. And I don't think that primary care has to feel that way, but I do think that it takes a little time and attention for us to decide for ourselves, what is my big picture that I'm trying to do here? And that might be something like, I want to have a sustainable career in medicine that allows me to, interact with families and spend time with my own family. It might be that I want to have a career in primary care and I want to teach the next generation how to provide care in a sustainable and excellent way. You can imagine some sentences here that might be pertinent for your own life, and thinking about what are those key elements to you. And if you are aligned towards those key elements, right? If you are very clear of, I want to provide excellent pediatric care with a mind towards development. And I don't know, I have some people who are becoming more skilled in, autism evaluations or ADHD evaluations, right? I want to move the needle in terms of, primary care's ability to diagnose and manage these conditions, right? To give families what they need after they've got a diagnosis. It doesn't necessarily have to be disease specific. It doesn't have to necessarily either be specifically career specific, right? But what is your infinite game when it comes to how you are right now in this place in your life, right? Again, we've all played finite games before of getting through our training, but this is a different beast. And when you can be clear on what those sentences are for you, what your big picture is, then you can start to make individual day-to-day decisions that line you up towards that goal. I've always really liked the lighthouse analogy. We have come from a place, right, with finite games where we had a map, we had a roadmap, a pathway, right? We just needed to stay the course and we would get to whatever that goal was, right? We need to stay on the map so that we arrive at a specific destination. With a lighthouse analogy, I don't know exactly the course that my boat is going to take, right? If I'm in a boat on the ocean and I can see a lighthouse in the distance, I don't know if I'm going to be drifting towards the shore or more out at sea, but every point along the way, I can look for the lighthouse and I can make corrections that aim me in that direction. And I think that's a more useful analogy when we're thinking about our careers, our life, right? Is thinking about, is this aiming me in the direction that I want to go? Now, do I mean that you need to analyze every decision that way? No. But we get a lot of drama a lot of the time when we are constantly bombarded with questions and decisions to make, as we frequently are. And if I know where my lighthouse is, if I know what's going to move me a little bit closer, it's easier for me to make those decisions, right? If I know that my long-term goal is building a sustainable career and being able to, care for families well and care for my own family and spend time with my own family, then it's going to be easier for me to make a decision that, no, I'm not able to take a walk-in today. Nope, I'm not able to double book because my son's got a soccer game after clinic. And it's important to me as a person, as a human, as a mom, to be able to get to that event. So today I will say no, right? You can see I don't have to dither in that decision when I know what my ultimate goals are. Now that's, again, sort of a silly specific example, but that comes up for us over and over and over again, right? If my goal is to be able to teach future physicians how to provide sustainable and excellent care, then as I've got decisions in front of me, I can think to myself, what is the decision here that most aligns with that goal? I love thinking about our careers this way because so often we get launched into practice and we no longer have, a program director who's overseeing things. And of course, we all had different experiences with that, right? We no longer have a faculty mentor who's necessarily helping us guide. Now, we may have some supports in place, but for a lot of us, we do not have adequate leadership support. We do not have adequate mentorship. We can do some of this work on our own, and we can do it in a way where we are sort of shielded from the cynicism that we may feel if we are feeling burned out. It's important that we have an overall direction for ourselves. Now, let's think about too, if you are in a place where you want your career to no longer be the dominant thing in your life, or at least not this part of your career. Let's say you want to do something else, right? You want to become a coach. You want to work part-time and, volunteer in the kids' school. I don't know. There's many things that you might like to do. You might be looking to retire early. You might be looking to travel more, to take a year off, to take a sabbatical. Those can be folded in to this equation, right? And again, it helps you to align your choices. When we have a clear direction, right? When we have that long-term infinite game in mind, we're much more flexible and we can start to ask ourselves important questions. How do I make this easier? How do I make this sustainable? How do I make sure that this aligns with the vision? How do I grow my skills so that I am ready for what is needed, right? If I am determined to become, an excellent basketball player, I'm going to need to learn how to shoot, but I'm also going to need to learn how to defend, how to dribble the ball down the court, right? There's going to be other skills that I need in place. And when my long-term goal to me is clear, I know what I need to do. It's not just about winning this game, this day. It's about building my skills over time. When I'm clear in my direction, I can pause and I can audit. How am I doing right now? Do I need to correct course, right? Am I lining up with what I want for myself? Do I need to reassess? Do I need to make something new easier? This also requires us to continue to seek inspiration, right? If I know the direction that I want to head, then I know to be finding others who may have done the same, right? If I want to become a coach, for example, then I'm going to seek out what are other coaches doing? How did other coaches train? How are they messaging and communicating with other people? Where are they showing up, right? I can put myself in those places to be able to see what other people are doing and to grow my ideas, my capacity, right? It's a very future-driven, hopeful, optimistic without being Pollyanna-ish direction to be going. Now, we might think that if I'm clear on what I ultimately want for myself, that means I should never get, stuck. I should never have a bad day. And of course, that's not true. We can get bogged down, right? And we can find ourselves feeling the heaviness of the work that's in front of us, the day-to-day demand. But again, it's an opportunity for us to pause and say, what do I need to do differently? If I'm finding that I'm not able to get my notes done consistently, and this is a problem over and over and over again, what needs to change? Am I doing charting in the room? Am I writing things that are in too much detail for the situation? Am I taking on too many medical problems within the context of whatever time I have allotted, right? We might have to look at those different areas to be able to see, why am I having so much challenge in getting through this when my ultimate goal, right, is really building a sustainable practice so that I can get home to my family? Something is going to need to change there. If I'm not clear that that is my goal, if, I want to spend time with my family, but I don't know, I haven't really declared it to myself. I haven't really made it visible. And right now I work really long hours. I come home, most of my notes are not finished. I hop back on my computer and have to finish them after I get the kids to bed, right? I'm grumpy, I'm tired. I have no clear direction. I might want to get my notes done easier, but I don't have that same pull. I don't have that same lighthouse sense of the direction that I want to go. You can see how having this direction, right, having it clear in your mind, I want to have a sustainable outpatient family medicine practice, right, where I'm able to get home at reasonable hours and spend time with my family. We can tag on there so that I can have better interactions with the families that I serve, so that I can, offer them sustainable advice for how to improve their health and their connectedness and their family life. Tie it to things that are meaningful to you. Tie it to things that are professionally meaningful and things that call to you, but also things in your personal life, right? Think about your big picture. I think that when we pause to do this work, and this is a lot of the work that happens in coaching, right? It really creates important shifts in our mind. And I've received advice over and over again from people that I talk to about my coaching practice. And sometimes they say, well, I'm not really clear what you do. I'm not really clear, kind of what outcomes people get from coaching with you. A lot of the work that I do is really around this long-term big picture. What is important to you? What is getting in your way? What are you finding is the roadblock that you hit day to day and, during the week and during the month and the year, right? What are those elements? And when we can do that, when we can see what's important to you and where you're getting stuck, where your challenges are, right? We get to start to tease out what are the elements that need to change, right? How do we create a more sustainable day? How do we start to say no to this thing over here that we've been doing before so that we can make decisions that line up with this newer thing that we want to be doing over there, right? How do we start to make this shift? When we are considering a new job opportunity, how are we thinking about the choices that we have so that they align with what we want for ourselves now and in the future, not with where we were in the past? It's a dynamic process. And this is something that you can get started with on your own. And certainly it's something that we can work on together. But I really want to put it out there. The question to you, what is important to you? Where are your values? What is your big picture? And if I looked at your life right now, would I see that your decisions, your actions, your thoughts, your day-to-day emotion, are they lining up with moving you towards that direction? Or are you currently knowing what you want, but really struggling to get it? Knowing that you want to be healthier, but not knowing how to create time for exercise or for healthier food choices, right? Maybe you know that you want to spend more time with family, but right now you're so busy with the work that you do that you're leaving early, you're coming home late, you're spending after hours charting, right? And you're not having the time that you want, right? These are all areas where we can start to make change, but we have to dig in a little bit and figure it out. It's not always as simple as going to, the epic efficiency charting sessions, right, that they would have, or, name your EMR. It's not always as simple as that, because sometimes we have deeper embedded ideas about what we're supposed to be doing because we are used to playing that finite game. My friends, this is good work to be doing. It takes a little time. It takes a little thought. It takes the bandwidth to be able to sit down, and it's not complicated. But I think a lot of us avoid this work because we don't know how to get started. And I know from my experience, sometimes I was afraid of what would come out, right? If I really sat down and thought about what I wanted for myself, I was a little afraid what would come out. What would I say? What would I write down? What would I share with someone that I was talking to, a coach or a therapist, right? Because sometimes saying it out loud is scary. It's scary to say it and declare it and put it out in the world. But when we do that, right, if we can navigate the discomfort of having a big audacious goal or having a direction that is off from what you are doing right now. We get to add so much value and joy and passion to the work that we're doing. So I invite you to lean in here. That might feel heavy. If you're listening to this on a Tuesday morning and you're driving to work and you're like, oh, I don't know when I'm going to get this done, come back to this episode. Come back, sit down and listen to it, or watch it on YouTube, and get out your notepad, your journal. If you're like me, you probably have 17 journals, mostly empty, where you can start to draft out this work. Or even better, schedule a call with me and let's chat. Let's chat about what you want for yourself, where you're getting stuck, and how we can work together to make it happen. I'd love to talk with you more because I know that this work has added so much to my life. Let's get it for you as well. All right, my friends, that's what I have for you this week. Think about what you want for yourself. It's good work to be doing. Until next time, take care.
Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.